This is the Turf Zone Podcast, your central information and news hub, bringing together professionals from turf associations across multiple states to share things to help you and your business. Brought to you in partnership with our friends at the Tennessee Turfgrass Association. This episode is sponsored in part by Sod, world-class service on demand. Visit us online at www.buysod.com. Now, let's get in the zone.
Welcome to the Turf Zone. In this episode, we feature an interview with Adam Portenier, Nashville Soccer Club head groundskeeper. Tell me, how long have you been working in the groundskeeping turfgrass industry?
Probably around 16, I believe. Starting to lose track of years. Yeah, probably 16 years, 9 years in MLS. Mm-hmm. Had 5 years at Dallas, and I'm on my fourth year with Nashville Soccer Club. Before that, I was in baseball, was at the Rangers for a year, Texas Rangers for a year, then 4 years at Haymarket Park at the University of Nebraska, their baseball field, and then 3 or 4 years at Hastings Public Schools taking care of their sports fields. That's how I got my start. So I think that's adds up to 16. I have to go back and check the math, but something around there.
I'll go back and fact check. It's good. So how did you decide to work in turfgrass management? Did you go to school for it or was it something else?
Yeah, actually, so I started off through my first time working through college, working for the Hastings Public Schools, taking care of their athletic fields. And I actually, first round of college, I went and got 2 associate's degrees, one in architectural design, one in construction management. I ended up taking like a 3-year break where I went out and was an architectural coordinator for a company called HDR. Primary design was hospital healthcare. We did, however, I did work on a project that kind of pushed me back into college. It was TD Ameritrade Park in Omaha, the College World Series new stadium, which I was the project coordinator on that, or the architectural coordinator on that, and working on that project, seeing the field design, field build, and all that. Sent me back to the University of Nebraska, where originally I was going to get my degree in construction, just finishing my degree in construction management, get a bachelor's in that, just so, because I was, at that point, I was just tired of being in an office. I was in a cubicle Monday through Friday besides site visits. And I knew when I left college and left that job at Hastings Schools, I was by far my favorite job I ever had, working outside, working with grass. At that time, though, I didn't know this. I knew it was a profession. I just didn't know how to get into it.
Right.
I had no idea there was turfgrass science degrees out there. So when I went back to Nebraska, my first semester, I was actually enrolled in construction management. One day I was just messing around online looking at what they all offer. And I came across their sports turf science program. So I set up a meeting with the advisor for that and talked to her for about 30 minutes. And I think the last question I asked her, I was like, what jobs do I get after graduating with this degree? And she kind of listed off some of her recent graduates working in baseball, stadium, and golf. And that kind of sold me. If there was a outcome where I was able to work at a stadium full time every day, that was something that I wanted to do. So I switched majors that week from construction management to sports turf science. And then that's when I got into baseball at Haymarket Park, started there as an intern and worked my way into a seasonal assistant and then second assistant, and then graduated and moved to Dallas.
Nice. So I do a lot of these interviews and that's a different track. Like I hear a lot of the same story. That one's a little different. So how did the architectural design and construction management, I mean, I understand that that's going to be a very different course of study, necessarily than turfgrass science. But do you feel like that prepared you for future jobs and the career?
Yeah, especially for the Nashville SC job. I was part of the build out of the stadium. We just opened our training facility this last week, actually. So when I got here, we had Curry Ingram was already built, which is our academy facility. But when I was here and I started getting brought in on those construction meetings, they would put blueprints in front of me and they'd start explaining to me, this is keys and all that. And and I already know how to read all that. So just that, and then construction processes, it definitely prepared me for this job and building this stadium and building this field. And then moving on to Antioch, where our first team training facility, it prepared me for kind of the whole design process, the build process, what to expect, and the steps through that, where it's design development, then construction documents, and then build out.
What is unique about your facilities now?
What's unique about our facilities is what makes them unique, but also what makes them, logistically kind of tough to manage is how we have 3 facilities in 3 different counties. So we have our academy facility in Brentwood, where that was for the first 3 years, 3.5 years. That was where our first team trained. So that facility was built. It was completed in October of 2019, and that's when I started. So that was completed before I got here. That was my first facility I managed in Nashville. The first team hosted their first training that following year in 2020. And then we have our stadium in Davidson County in Nashville. And then now our training facility, our first team training facility, is in Antioch. So our brand is spread out throughout the Nashville area. So we have a little bit of, we kind of touch a little bit of every aspect or every part of Nashville, but which is good. It gets the brand out there, but managing all 3 facilities when they're, anywhere from 30 to 40 minutes apart, depending on traffic, can be challenging at times.
Yeah, I don't envy you having to move back and forth between those.
Yeah.
So what does your crew look like? Do you have full-time and part-time staff members in all 3 locations?
So the crew's still a work in progress. So we have 4 full-time and then am I doing that right? 2, 3, 4.5 employees plus me. So I'm 5.5 at 3 facilities. So that's something that's probably my main priority going forward, is to get us properly staffed. And it's been something I've continued to work through with organizations. So right now we have 2 full-time groundsmen at Curry Ingram. We have a full-time and a part-time at Antioch. And then I have a full-time hourly groundsman here at the stadium. And then I kind of throughout the week, depending on demand, I'll move from facility to facility. This week I was at Antioch Monday morning, stadium afternoon. Stadium yesterday, we top dressed the stadium field. And yesterday I was at Antioch all day, top dressing that field. And then tomorrow I'll be at Curry Ingram all day. So it's a little hectic, but I think we'll get there eventually.
Yeah. Do you need those Turfgrass science students or do you need more just straight up labor positions? Or do you still need to fill out that crew?
I mean, it's always good to get people with the professional background. But right now, my first assistant, Alex Poole, he's a Turfgrass graduate from Iowa State. He's my first assistant. So he's over Antioch, which is the first team training facility. Then Transcript, who's my second assistant. He's at at the academy facility, and he graduated from North Dakota State. So my 2 assistants have the full background. They have the education. And then my hourly guys, the agreement we have with Nashville and the community agreement is, we're going to prioritize hiring locally. So for our hourly guys, we're looking more local in the Nashville area. So really we're getting guys who maybe not have the turf background, but we've gotten guys from parks and recs, some golf courses that are just good labor workers. We did get lucky on the last hiring go around where we had a guy originally from Nashville, Dalton, who was at Atlanta United for the last 5 years. And he's a Turfgrass graduate from UT. So we were able to bring him on board because he was from the area. So that worked out in our favor. The rest is just working with the organization and, kind of educating them on what it takes to properly maintain facilities and the actual workload of growing grass. It's not just mowing. There's, we could talk for hours about what all goes into managing these fields at these levels and the demand where the first team trains 6 days a week. We have academy that trains 5 to 7 days a week, depending on their schedule. And then they have their games out at the academy facility. And then this year we're getting into concerts. We have 3 concerts on the books. And it also sounds like we're going to be opening up the stadium field a little bit more to other private events. We had a wedding on the field this year already.
Okay.
We have some things like we're doing Summerfest. So the demand's only growing. Last year, with it being our first year in the stadium, we were kind of protective over the field. We just want to make sure we we get everything figured out, put a good product on the field for our first year. And then this year, it sounds like we're going to start opening things up to other non-soccer events on this stadium field.
Okay. Wow. I pulled the blurb from the professional field of the year from TTA. And I was reading that. I was like, how do you do that? 30 events from May 1st to October. So I know you said you were more protective of it last year being your first year, but after all of those events, how did you feel like everything held up?
I was very impressed with the field last year. I felt like there was a learning curve, especially with this being my first time growing grass in a stadium with a 360 canopy. I've had grow lights before. We had grow lights at Dallas, but I still have areas on this field that haven't seen sunlight since August. They won't start to see sunlight till middle of May. So trying to figure out how we can, manipulate those areas, grow those areas with just grow lights only. And it was a quick learning process, but I feel like we really we laid the sod in March, and I think we really hit our stride in August. And August was about the time when you really saw this field responding well. I think we had 8 home games in 9 weeks from end of July to first week of September, and then sprinkle some trainings in there on the stadium. And from event to event, game to game, we were recovering. We were bouncing back really well. Like you couldn't even tell we played last week at that point. So we started really dialing in our program and our maintenance schedule and our lighting and rotation by August. And since then you always think you have it figured out until something else comes at you, whether it's a concert or a cold snap. And where we got down to 20s for a week last month. But it's you're always adapting, right? Every year is different. There's never been, in my 9 years in the MLS, there's never been a year that's been the same for growing conditions or growing season. So you kind of just get a base plan and go off that, but then adjust as the year goes.
For sure. When you first came to Tennessee, you came here from
Dallas.
Okay. So did that feel like a big learning curve, moving geography to adjust to the elements that Tennessee throws at you?
Yes. Dallas is in the transition zone. We're in the transition zone, right? But we're north transition zone. Dallas, when you're ready to pull the plug on the ryegrass in Dallas, you're getting consistent 90s. You're going to reach 100 degrees where that Bermuda grass just jumps and it takes off and doesn't stop. Here, I feel like you might get a week in the 90s if you're lucky in May. I don't even know if we got a week in the 90s since I've been here in May. But even in June, you might hit 90s, and then that next week is going to be 80s, 70s, and then that ryegrass comes firing back. Dallas, we never chemically sprayed out ryegrass. We could always culturally. Problem whether it's scalping, verticutting, pulling cores, and then just watching our water, that ryegrass is going to go, that Bermuda grass is going to take off. Here, my first year here in 2020, I tried to run the program we did in Dallas to transition, and I lost. So I ended up having to spray out the ryegrass. I think it was around 4th of July where I just couldn't get the ryegrass to back off. So we ended up coming in and spraying out the rest. And we had a pretty successful transition that year. And then the next summer, I think we had 2021, we had 4 weeks in the 90s, 1 in June, 1 in July, and 2 in August, which it's tough. It's definitely been more difficult, especially in regards to the transition window. It's been a lot harder to get the Bermuda up and going here than it was in Dallas. And then the disease pressure's a lot higher here, I've noticed. Where in Dallas, I think the 5 years I was in Dallas, I've never sprayed one fungicide on my training field ever in Dallas. And then stadium was more, we spray fungicides when we're putting blankets out or flooring down. Here, it's you have to be on a preventative schedule with maintenance, otherwise you're going to get caught. That was the big part of the learning curve, just the different climate. You're still in the transition zone, but you don't get the benefits of being in Dallas where it's hotter, it's drier, less humid. So it's been I've learned a lot in the last 4 years for sure, growing grass in Tennessee, but it's definitely different.
Yeah, for sure. So did you become part of TTA pretty soon after moving here?
Yeah, I think it's one of the first things I did because I wanted to get my applicator's license.
Mm-hmm.
Did that through TTA. So I would probably say it was within that first 2 months as I joined TTA. And that's, and I want to start my networking The best way to learn how to grow grass in an area is just to talk to other turfgrass managers. So I joined that kind of part of that organization just to meet people and then get my applicator's license and start learning and as much as I could on the difficulties and challenges of growing grass in Tennessee.
Yeah, it's a good resource. The turf team at UT they've been phenomenal. I see them everywhere.
Yeah. And I've known John Sorokin, before I came to Tennessee, and I've had, multiple conversations with him about things I've seen out here and kind of what to do, whether it's timing for your pre-emergent applications in Tennessee versus Dallas. And I actually had my first run in with nematodes 2021. I've never had nematodes, never seen them, couldn't figure out. I mean, I saw the issues I was having on the grass fields out at Curry Ingram, but we were trying some things to correct it and just couldn't get it corrected. And then I think I was having a conversation with Eric Hall with Precision Turf one day, and he was explaining to me about another field in Florida, and he explained exactly what was going on in my field.
Yeah.
So we took a nematode assay and came back where we were in the threshold of damage and sprayed a nemicide, and we moved forward. But that, and then also armyworms. Never experienced that until I was in Tennessee, and we've had that 2 rounds now.
Last year, took 2021. 2021.
Yeah. 2021 was a rough year, I think. I had nematodes and armyworms. I was just walking the field at Curry, and I saw the worm, and for whatever reason, I recognized it right away. So we got on top of it right away and didn't have any damage from armyworms that year.
Nice. All right. Let's talk about what in all of your multitude of free time, what do you do? Do you have a family? Do you have hobbies?
I do. Since we moved down here, it was just my wife and I. We moved to Tennessee, and since then we welcomed a little girl who's now just turned 2 years old this year in January. We are growing here in Tennessee. We bought a house in Spring Hill, and we do really enjoy life in Tennessee. And as we find time off, we do like to go exploring, whether it's, going to all the waterfalls that are around here. We still haven't made it up to Gatlinburg yet. It's on our to-do list.
Oh, it's a must-do.
Yeah. So as time comes, we'll get there.
Yeah. I live in Spring Hill too. Do you get out and do any hiking around here?
We've been, I'm not going to remember any of the names, but we've been mostly south of Spring Hill to where we've gone hiking. And then we live in a really good neighborhood where we know all our neighbors. So we do a lot of, just front driveway hanging out or back patio hanging out with them. Love
that. You spent the majority of your turfgrass career in soccer. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Was that just I love this sport, or was it job opportunity based?
It was job opportunity. I mean, when I applied for the FC Dallas job, I clicked on the link, and just seeing FC Dallas, I had no idea what it was. When I knew of Dallas's professional soccer team, it was Dallas Burns. So I clicked on the link and saw that it was professional soccer, and I had no experience in soccer at this point. So I just applied for it to kind of see what the competitiveness in soccer was, whether it's salary or how it all worked out. And it just so happened that my boss at Dallas also worked at the Rangers and knew the head guy at the Rangers really well. So I got a good referral from the Rangers and ended up at FC Dallas.
So I'm a sports fan, but I don't understand soccer. If you told me that I needed to come watch a soccer game, I would, and I would enjoy it, and I would admire your field, but I would have no idea.
I'm still that way. The actual game itself confuses me on some of the calls they make and all that. But I've now been in 9 years. You understand the game a little bit, watching trainings every day. But I didn't grow up playing soccer. It was baseball, football. But we do have a good atmosphere here at Geo's Park, and I think we average 28,000 fans a game. So the atmosphere alone is fun. And then we've been in the playoffs every year since we've been in the MLS. So Coach Gary puts out a great product year in, year out, and it's fun to watch. Yeah,
for sure. What is one lesson you've learned the hard way in your career?
I mean, always, the hardest thing for me, especially starting here in Nashville, as I started hiring people, was, not taking on so much. Trust my assistants, allow them to be on their own, and just taking loads off my plate where I'm not everywhere I can't be everywhere at every day. So it's just really kind of learning to let go of some things and let them handle it. And they've made it easy to do that. They've done a great job handling their own facilities. So it's taken a lot of work off my plate, but it was hard at first, kind of giving up that, I'm very particular in how I do things and how I want things done, but just kind of learning that, they might not do it the same way I do it, but it gets done properly. And at the end of the day, it's the same outcome.
Yep. Excellent. What would be your advice for people thinking about or actually entering the turfgrass management industry now?
My advice has always been internships. I think internships are huge. You're going to figure out, whether baseball's right for you or soccer's right for you. We actually started a really cool internship in Dallas where we partnered with a golf course. So half the summer you were soccer, the other half you were in golf, and then we flipped the interns. But that's the time when you really want to, you're in college, you don't have a lot of commitments, you can move around the country, but just figuring out like what sport's right for you, whether it's golf, football, soccer, baseball. And then it's also the best way to get your name around. I tell interns all the time, when you go and intern for a club, you're interning for every club out there, because I know every head turf manager in soccer. I have most of them in my phone, where if I see somebody who applies for me, whether it's Miami, Houston, I'll pick up the phone and call their head guy right there, and I'll get a referral. So I think internships are the most important thing to do to get your foot in the door, or just to get your name around this organization.
Awesome. Okay. Is there anything that I didn't ask you or that we didn't touch on that you would want to add to or share?
No, I think you covered all of it. Asked some good questions.
Excellent.
You've been listening to The Turf Zone. Thank you to our sponsors, including Buy Sod, world-class service on demand. Visit us online at www.buysod.com. For more episodes of The Turf Zone, visit theturfzone.com and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app.